How are we feeling? Today it's 70 degrees in beautiful New England. How are we feeling? Woo! Yeah, there it is. Hello, everyone. My name is Amanda Shea, and I will be your host today. We have 7 young poets who have been working on meaningful poems for you. For those who are not familiar with spoken word poetry, it is a form of performance art in which speakers express themselves verbally on a specific subject. And today's subject is what matters to you, which is GBH's new tagline. So as you all know, this month is AAPI month, and throughout history, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have played pivotal roles in shaping the nation, from building the Transcontinental Railroad to advocating for labor law changes to fighting in multiple wars and their contribution to the arts. In addition to making these contributions, they were also subjected to constant discrimination and violence throughout American history. We stand against Asian hate and make a safe space for their community and them. GBH is committed to making a safe space for all walks of life. And today, we honor and celebrate AAPI month. We want to welcome our special guest, Prema. I'm going to say your whole name, but before I begin, I just want to brag about how we met. Can I do that really quick?
Yes, please.
Prema and I actually met at Cultural Nights, which is an event curated by Danny Rivera and AIR, which stands for Artists Initiative for Revolution. It was at the city of Boston last year in front of the Roxbury Public Library, which I live right down the street from, so I love that. I instantly felt something when I looked over at you. I don't know what that energy was, but it was just this beautiful connection. And it allowed me to not only just stare and hone in on us and block out the rest of the world for a second, but I was able to dedicate one of my pieces, Resilience, to you that same day.
It was a much needed piece that day as well, so I really felt that energy.
It was
I really
you
loved it.
and this other woman who was sitting in the front, and you all, ever since then, it was just kindred spirits. So I am so happy to have you over here.
Super grateful myself, thank you.
Prema Bangera, who is ethnically South Indian from Tula native of lower caste, born in Mumbai, and partially raised on the unceded land of the Wampanoag and Massachusetts people. She is a multidisciplinary artist, an educator, a community organizer, and a cultural worker. Her writing and artwork has appeared in various publications and showcased at Boston City Hall, right down the street from us, y'all. Prema has launched a consulting organization called Healing Empowers Ancestral Love, HEAL, I love that, and established a healing arts program called Narratives of Transformative Love, aimed to help BIPOC community members address systematic oppression by reclaiming their own identities using art as the catalyst. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Our second guest joining us is Leslie Condon. What is going on? Let me just get some water, y'all. I am a human. I apologize.
No worries.
Our second guest joining us is Leslie Condon, Visual Arts Manager at Payal Arts Center. I have heard of your work before even meeting you today, and I'm just honored to be in your presence. Artists in the city that I know have spoke so highly of Payal Arts Center and what it provides and the community it gives to them. Artists like Mika Rosengrant, Payal, and Ava Sophia. So your reputation precedes you, so I'm just happy to have you here. And I cannot wait to hear more about your work at Payal Arts Center. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank y'all. Can we get a round of applause? Yes, yes, yes. So first I want to go into and ask you a couple of questions, Prema, about just artistry and art is life, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us how poetry influenced who you are today as a poet and some of your poet inspirations?
Sure. So I think my journey has been really interesting in that I grew up around a lot of artistic forms. I think that for me, visual art came first. So I was born in India, and so that was sort of, I think, family oriented. That was a medium. But in moving to US, we lived in a small, crowded apartment. I have this funny tidbit that I have where Small apartment, shared rooms, all those things. The bathroom was my solo time, like literally. And so I have like moments where I would go there to escape, and I would go there to just like write. And I would use like my time to just write poetry during that space. And probably really bad, like all, no pun intended, shitty poetry at that age, because I was like 9 years old. And so I think my love for like music, and I also really love music. That's not my forte, but like writing like lyrical poetry, things came in that nature. And I think part of that for me has meant that art and writing sort of found me, and I found it, and it has become this healing process for me, which is why I do a lot of the work that I do. I look at it as something that saved me in some ways. Like art and writing saved my life. It saved me from a lot of the traumas or the healing process that I needed to generate. So that's sort of my step into the process, where I feel that it is not just this art form that's structured in society. It is something that's unique, and I'm sure that is true for most artists, if not all artists, is that it's a saving grace for us. And so for me, that's my journey too, is that I stepped into that world in that element. And immigrant parents kind of have this notion of you going into a job frame that will give you some funds in return, lawyer, engineer, doctor. And I was in that path of trying to be a lawyer, and I said, nope, I'm gonna go in that creative route, and I'm grateful for it. It might not be that financially well-off position. At the same time, it's something that will never change in my life. And so, and some of the writers that I kind of honed into at all points, and I think it's been a different journey all throughout. Like I loved, and some of it's also prose writers, right? Like I love Toni Morrison. I love, those like prose elements that like kind of keep you. There's so many things I was thinking of earlier too. Audre Lorde, June Jordan, those are like my people. Even though locals, that are well established, Ka Jin is an amazing, Lee Young Lee as AAPI artist that we think of, James Baldwin. I think one of my first elements, when I was younger, is like Langston Hughes. That sets the tone for everything. And so for me, it's been these artists that like carry me home, and I still, dig up in different spaces, contemporary artists, our past artists, Nikki Giovanni, that has like all these revolutionary artists that are not just poets, they are revolutionaries, and they have set the tone for what we need to do for liberation amongst the BIPOC community, and that's where my heart lies in that. So poetry to me, as I think June Jordan said it, is a political act. So that's what I love. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much. Yeah. I love that. It also reminds me of like Nina Simone, where it's like our duty as the artist to reflect the times in which we live in. Yeah. And also I love the fact that you talked about how you used it as a tool and to heal a lot of trauma. I think that most of us, when we're doing or composing or producing art, we use it as a form of therapy. It's always the internal first before we start sharing with other folks. And that leads me to my next question is, what kind of led you to start performing or even being out in public and saying, okay, now I want people to kind of see what I've been working on?
I honestly, I think like part of that journey started when I was younger in itself, but like in very shy ways. I think I had like a friend, a person I was studying singing with, which didn't happen the way it needed to, but encouraged me as they're performing their music to go up on stage with them and like perform my poetry. I think also later on, so I'm also like in my multidisciplinary artist work is like poetry, prose, visual art, dance, and theater. So that, I mean, again, not on these like higher levels of it, but it's like something that I did when I was younger and something that I continue to do in different forms. Like I'm part of a theater troupe right now. I like using, part of the work that I do, I'm trying to bring back like the soul dancing element of it. So I think for me, that notion of performance comes sort of like in a way that's, I wouldn't say natural, but something that I feel like that's the way to express. And I feel like a lot of within Eastern cultures too, it's a lot of oration that comes in play. It's never like the written form only. I mean, even my native tongue, it's an oral dialect. Like one of my native tongues is an oral dialect. And so I feel like the process of sharing is always this oral way of storytelling. And so for me, that kind of gave that instinct to say, let me put it out there. Let me chuck away all my fears, all my nervousness, and just put it out there, because I think that that sense of, and we also like levels of ableism, right? Like you have to think about what the written form, who does it serve, even languages in itself. And so, yeah, I think that the part of that sharing is like both ancestral roots of it, both just my love of it, and like I think the newer ways of connection and community being together. There's like that folklore element of collection, yeah, and community together. Those circles, yeah.
I agree 1,000%. How did you get connected to Payal Arts Center?
So that was like a very recent and interesting journey. Sophia Chen, who is works at Payal Arts Center, had kind of invited me to different things, and we became friends in different sort of capacities. And I've kind of learned more about the different elements happening there. Payal Kumar, who's an amazing artist, poet, multidisciplinary artist, as part of Leslie's call and response. I remember going there as well, and I just loved the show altogether. And so that was sort of my, I mean, I've known a Payal Arts Center has a deep history. So it's existed in Boston for such a long time. And I think my sort of recent kind of connections grew from that. And I've really been deeply appreciative of the work that's happening and the work that's been, put together. So yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Leslie.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. I am not a performer, so I don't think I can maybe be as articulate in the moment as Prema, but yeah, thank you for making this space today.
Thank you for coming to this space. I wanted to first say that you lied to me because you told me that you didn't do any performing, but you're doing call and response.
So that is actually the name of our current exhibition that I curated.
Oh,
so
okay, so you did that.
I didn't lie. We've already mentioned Payal. They're actually in the audience here and are going to present later, so I'm so excited about that.
So excited.
Yes.
And so how long have you worked at Payal Arts, and what is it that you feel that it brings to the community as a whole?
Sure. So I've been at Payal Arts Center since November 2020. I do just want to make a little bit of an adjustment from what you said. And we've only been open since 2017, but we're actually part of a larger social service organization that has a much longer history in Boston Chinatown. And we're, yes, and we're also very distinctive because most art organizations are part of university spaces or they're independent spaces, but being under a social service entity gives us a very distinctive kind of perspective. So really thinking about arts in terms of community care and not being a supplemental thing, but really being thought of as an essential part of a holistic community wellness. Yeah.
I love that. And how long? You said since 2020.
Since I've been there for about 2.5 years. And in my role, I manage a lot of different things, as you can imagine. So one of them is exhibitions, including our public programming. We do have something taking place. I know that this is going to be released later than the date, but we do have a public programming taking place with Payal tomorrow at Payal Arts Center.
Yes,
yeah.
Cool. I love that.
We do have residencies as well. We had a very distinctive one that actually partnered local Chinatown residents with local artists. So really bringing them into the artist process and also just trying to allow them to see how arts can be a tool for activism and change. So really trying to, again, empower people and bring them into that process to say, like, you should have input into the narratives that are being generated within your neighborhood and about your community.
Because we're talking about exhibits and public programming, and thank you so much, because I think I wasn't aware of how much goes on in the space. I just know about a couple of things, but not everything, and that's okay for those, even though we're airing this later. There's people in our live studio audience who can come to the exhibit, so I'm glad that you named when it was happening. This question may be a little difficult to answer because we are talking about so much about positivity, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to shift that into a different space, but I do want to know what are some of the challenges that you all face and how the community at large can help you face those problems together.
So I think you're asking about being an arts entity within the Boston arts ecosystem. Is that sort of sure?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. So, I think that's always kind of a challenge to reinforce our importance in the larger, the larger ecosystem. We're a smaller entity. We don't have those institutional backings that other places do. So we do kind of rely on grants from foundations, from individuals. And so that kind of compels us to constantly refine our narrative. So, if you're not from the arts, again, understanding the power of art, which Prema has already articulated beautifully, is sometimes, tricky and challenging. We sort of forget how much our world is, completely about the arts. We look around, these are fabricated places and spaces designed by people. The images we see online, those are all part of the arts, and we sort of take it for granted, and it becomes this invisible thing, but it's all around us. And so, again, trying to demonstrate that need is always a challenge, and it's especially something that becomes a bigger obstacle when things like a global pandemic happen.
Yes.
And people start, putting their monies towards different things because it feels more essential, like medical care. And of course those are essential, that's a life and death thing. But at the same time, we should remember that people were really turning to Netflix and television to get them emotionally through the pandemic. And so just, again, I think it demonstrated the importance of being able to sometimes emotionally process through narratives, to learn through those storytelling pieces. And also just to, I think, tune out, honestly. I think we had to numb out a little bit too. So again, I think it's reminding people of those pieces. And then, if you come to POW, I think it's an easy kind of sell when you kind of experience one of our programs.
What does the future look like for you? Like ideally, and if you could imagine what that would look like, what would you like at least the next 5 years to look like?
Sure, I think we're always, because we're also part of a social service entity, we always need a little bit more than the resources that we have at present. So hopefully we're expanding our staff. We're just kind of continuing to build our footprint, not just in the arts, but also just on a community level. So we're always partnering with local communities in a lot of different and inventive ways. But I think, having more resources to do that more efficiently, to do that without having to do it like the hardest way possible would just be so helpful. So again, just people coming to our space, getting to know us, is one of these easiest ways for people to contribute to our success. And of course, we want people just to come to our neighborhood and celebrate Chinatown. We do try to amplify work from across the Asian diaspora. So we are trying to serve a lot of different folks at once, and also, again, trying to expand that reach to the BIPOC community more broadly. But yeah, we would love for everybody in the audience to join us sometime, especially right now with the work up in our space.
Where can they sign up and volunteer and find more information?
Sure, we do have a website, just powartcenter.org. But yeah, we have a very active and social media.
What is that?
Our Instagram shows all of our events where we have a lot going on. We always have probably every other week. If not every week, we have an outdoor performance. We have something in our theater taking place. It's a lot, there's always something happening, but again, in these warmer months, we always hope that people will come out and join us.
It can absolutely never be enough, right? Because like what you said and what Prema had said as well, it's like the arts is so healing, and it really brings us together in such a beautiful way. And I think that not only is it important for us to tell our truths, but be able to share our stories with folks who don't know those, that don't know us and know our truths. So I want to say thank you so much, Prema. Thank you so much, Leslie, for joining us and sharing your experience as visual art and as a multidisciplinary artist. I'm really excited because Prema has agreed to grace us with a few pieces of her work. So I'm really excited.
Thank you.
So we're going to clear off the stage for a quick moment and get you all set up for that. Thank you so much, Leslie. And please visit Payal Arts Center. And thank you so much, Prema. We'll see you in a second.
Thank you. So I'm going to be reading 2 poems right now, today. So it's going to start off with a punch, the first poem, and it's going to end with a lot of love. So the first poem, I'll just kind of give a little tidbit about it, is that it addresses sort of a lot of the conversation we had right now. It addresses sort of the systemic oppression, the white supremacy that takes place in art spaces. And it's kind of a call out to white artists and writers, but it's not individualistically. I want that to kind of be in the know. It's more so the ideologies that we carry. White supremacy is seeped into every space. I was gonna mention how I wish more galleries, more magazines took lead from a lot of from the BIPOC-oriented galleries and writers, because there's a lot of white artists that are promoted that are doing BIPOC trauma work where it doesn't make sense. So here's the poem. Hopefully it'll make more sense as I read it. It's called Calling All White Artists and Writers. Your so-called appreciation is appropriation. Calling all white artists and writers. My culture is a sacred shapeshifter living inside my body. I'm still unlearning the shame from your white community's gaze. I'm still grasping to learn all the facets of my ancestral ground, digging through the soil of your colonized destruction upon my diasporic palm lines. Please let me take a breath, a few million breaths, to fertilize and nourish the open gardens of my ancestors' untold epics. Please know that this is not a request for permission, but rather a demand, a call to step off. Step off my overburdened chest holding the scars of a pariah. Step off my callous hands cupping the mahogany clay to shape my people's sagas. Step off my tongue that curls into survived languages your mouth cannot sing into symphony. You are not welcome to handpick from the body of my land's gardens. Dilute what works into your stories, discard what doesn't. Profit from the exotism of the flowers I call my raw, unfiltered pain. A field of my own dried blood and salt, sweat-soaked debris of dirt stuck underneath my clutched fingernails. You are not welcome to take from my culture and become the modern-day Columbus, so-called discovering our knowledge to teach to your community with a whitewashed veil laced in every inch of your words and work. You are not welcome to take from us as your ancestors did. You are not welcome to loot our gold and blood and jewels and soil and call it appreciation. You are not welcome to share our ancient truths and rituals for others in bits and pieces with your misguided information. We still have our voices for that. We still have our voices which can shake the earth with our roars, our whispers, our songs. We survived through generations of genocide, rape, pillage, and exploitation. We are the bodies built to dance barefoot through hurricanes, eat fire with our raw tongues, protect the waters of our children. We are still here, alive and breathing. Thank you. This next poem comes with sort of, love and a journey. It's kind of actually an offshoot from one of my short stories that I wrote that's about a South Asian person in a coming of age, traveling and living and kind of coming to their own. And that's in the search of a mystical character named Isra, who takes on these different these forms. And the notion around it is like coming back to your ancestral roots, but redeveloping it, reconstructing what that means. Because even, our ancestors have gone through so many traumas, so there's a lot of unlearning, a lot of things to happen. So this poem is called Nude Body of Gutters. You lose her in the vortex of guttered water. Her tangled hair entwines tornado-like. Her body spinning boisterously at its core. Her name, Isra, the wooden doll with black pebbled eyes. Your body was 5, your mind was 42. Papa's hands were covered in wire. Your arms cable scraped. Ma said, you're an abortion living. She was the sequence of tattered saris. You hid under odnis, listening to Sanskrit chants, clutching Nana's Isra like the single weed inside your ma's marigold garden. Nana said, Isra has the answer. Break wood, break light, break time. On flesh, tree lines are drawn out of prayers. Isra, her nude curves sprawl in gutters. She is breathing, pivoting with the tides, pirouetting into the ocean. Her body is the hum of a closed room, giving birth to birds made of leaves. Papa said, your name is a temple prayer. Ma want to bathe you in lotus petals. You only believed in the apparition of the stars.
Your face ruptured hallelujahs of the wavish monks. You will lie in a field of perennial voices. You will meet Isra in Shanghai under bridges of pillars laced in Mandarin. You will smell the opium once exchanged for weapons. Your body will turn into ashed wood, your mind still breathing. You will never be alone. That's all. Thank you. I forgot to mention, Odni means shawl and Nana is grandfather, but you know, language is a funny thing. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.